Welcome to Psychos and Sociopaths. Today we're going to go over,
Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Or Blanchard.
Blanchard.
Because she a Cajun, she a Kunans.
Yeah.
She a Creole right there.
Now, this is a weird case because we talked about this before the actual show.
And a small note, and we'll get right back on track. This is the first killer that I got to pick. So I'm happy about the dude. I'm proud of this one.
Yeah, and you did your due diligence on this one too. It's basically the murder of Dee Dee Blanchard. It's only like one murder on this one.
Yeah,
and
but it just looked the case itself, and see what drew my attention to this case was that show. It's on Hulu. It's The Gift.
Yeah,
and
that was a weird. That's what really got me into this too.
Yeah, and
I still to this moment, and yes, he disagrees with me on this one. I think it was more or less a person of. It's basically a person that's been tortured for probably about 10 to 12 years, and the mother being overbearing and everything. And we'll get into all what happened.
So before we get there, and I didn't 100% disagree with you at all. So, I mean, there was some. It's more on the finite points that I disagreed with versus the actual premise. So let's just kind of put that out there.
Yeah.
But Gypsy Rose grew up with her mom, Dee Dee, and she claims that Dee Dee was making claims about her health that resulted in a series of misdiagnoses or diagnoses. We'll just say
the
that.
Diagnosis.
And medical interventions. But Gypsy wasn't sick. Her mom had been lying about her symptoms, and experts believe that her behavior, that Dee Dee's behavior, really kind of stemmed from this. It's called Munchausen syndrome.
Yeah,
and it's by proxy.
By proxy, yeah.
Yeah, and because Dee Dee wanted to be a caretaker, she faked all of these illnesses for her daughter. I mean, talking about like allergies to sugar. Talking about she had MS or muscular dystrophy. Had her in a wheelchair, but Gypsy could walk, and Gypsy could eat like everybody else, but she had a feeding tube inserted into her daughter's stomach.
Oh no, that's not even like half of it.
Because she had her on this medication that broke her teeth down, and she had to have all of her teeth extracted.
That was part of it. But if you actually look in more, is she had surgery to have her saliva glands. Yeah, saliva glands. At first they did Botox, then they eventually had them removed.
Yeah.
And that was another cause that caused her, because you have to have saliva in your mouth to basically clean your. It's a cleaning thing.
Yeah.
Because your saliva also goes down into your stomach and puts a very a casing around your stomach for your acid and everything like that. But you also have it to where it's in your mouth, where it deals with the acid in your mouth too. So it's a cleaning agent. You have to have saliva, and a lot of people overproduces it, and that's the reason why they have that surgery or you can have cancer in your of the saliva glands too. But what she did to her own child, this Dee Dee person,
yeah,
oh my God.
Now, and Dee Dee was giving Gypsy a lot of bad information. One, telling her she was sick. Gypsy knew that she wasn't sick, but at some point Gypsy did think she was sick, but at some point she started to kind of figure it all out.
And also the fact that she didn't even know her own age because her mother kept on lying about
when she was born, and then she found her birth certificate. Yeah.
No, she had a glance of her birth certificate,
well, yeah.
And she was like, and the mother was like, "Oh, that's just a misprint. Don't look at that."
Oh, honey, you know that's wrong. But like her mom used Gypsy's quote unquote illnesses to get things like a house from Habitat for Humanity, and it was just the most god awful pink, right?
Yeah.
Gypsy had friends in this cul-de-sac that they lived in. Dee Dee was just, I mean, she was your over the top, overbearing helicopter mom, and uh, she kept curtains up, blinds up. I mean, basically obscured people from being able to see into the house through the windows, and would punish Gypsy if she got up out of her wheelchair and walked around the house. Like, oh, somebody's going to see you, and you know what happens
I wonder if she had muscular problems because of that.
I don't think she did, because
Because
Gypsy would
they're
constantly talk about how she would just, when her mom wasn't around, when her mom didn't was like asleep or whatever, she would get up and walk. So I mean, she was walking.
okay. So she didn't have like muscular atrophy.
No, no, she didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Because I didn't read that. If I didn't, in this one, he actually did more research than I did on this one. I did a little bit, and I got some of the interviews, but I didn't get. He went in and then found the interviews with the cops
Yeah.
and everything like that, and got a
Yeah,
little bit more into it.
she could walk. She didn't need a feeding tube. She didn't have cancer. Her head was bald because her mom shaved her all the time.
Yeah.
Dee Dee had a mental illness. I mean, and again, Munchausen syndrome by proxy. It's also called facetious or not or factitious disorder imposed on another, which made her fabricate or come up with these lies about her daughter's health in order to receive attention, sympathy. Oh, she's such a good mom. She's taking care of her little angel. And I mean, they would get like free trips. They would get, like I said, they got a house.
Yeah.
I think they maybe
What was
even
really
a car.
strange? I mean, do you ever that showed that one scene where she's at a kid's birthday party and she eats a cupcake,
Yeah,
and she's supposedly allergic to sugar,
Yeah.
and her mother just jumps up and EpiPen, and EpiPen basically is an adrenaline surge, and too much of it, oh God, it causes a lot of problem
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
because she went into seizures
yeah, now,
because of that.
when Gypsy got closer to the age of 18, she started sneaking some of this money that they had been receiving through donations from people that felt sympathy or empathy for their plight, whatever. Um, and she would buy like burner phones. She bought a laptop. She started going online, setting up secret profiles, went on Facebook, set up dating profiles, things like that, and ended up meeting like a couple of guys, and then ultimately ending up with what was his name? What was it? It was Nick. I cannot remember. What is it?
It was a weird name. I'm trying to find it right
I'm
now.
scrolling too.
God and John.
Yeah, his last. Yeah, but I think his first name was Nick or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like this guy, and he supposedly suffers from a split personality. Like Nick is his normal person, right? And you can tell that the guy has definitely got some kind of mental handicap there. Um, but his split personality went by the name of Victor, and he was supposedly this 500-year-old vampire kind of a thing. And they would role play.
It just
And they would
it
do
just
like their
reminds me
BDSM
of,
type scenarios through FaceTime.
Well, it actually reminded me of an episode of Night Stalkers where the vampire was a detective, and there was an episode to where one of the vampires had a split personality, and the vampire could go out in the day because she thought she was human, and she was a vampire at night because that's what was the trigger. But it not real. I understand this.
Yeah. Now, this is a relatively recent
Development.
development because they moved to Missouri after being displaced by Katrina,
Yeah.
and so she had her boyfriend come up, or will come down because he was living in Big Bend, Indiana, I think it is. He was like from Ohio or Indiana, I can't remember which. Anyways, he would come down. And she actually lost her virginity to this guy in the bathroom of a theater because they had arranged this like get together or whatever.
Yeah.
They were supposed to go see. It was like a Disney movie, right, or something like that. Cinderella or some craziness, or Beauty and the Beast. I can't remember which. Anyways, um, she snuck off while her mom was watching the movie and had sex in the bathroom.
And she wanted to have his kid too.
Yeah, trying to say this without sounding
Biased.
not biased, but chauvinistic. Gypsy Rose, like the actual person. I mean, she's actually pretty.
Yeah,
Like,
she's decent looking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say passable because we're gonna get all the fembots be like, oh my god, and like
Okay, on my scale she's a 9. Not my scale, it's 1 to 20 instead of 1 to 10. She's a 9. She has a nice,
most people she's like a 5.5 or a 6.
Yeah.
Well, see, to me that's
Well,
okay,
I have
now,
to factor in crazy.
Well, you got to factor in crazy. You got to factor in. See, for the mature individuals in the world, everybody talks about beauty, skin deep, blah blah blah. To me, beauty goes way past that. I mean, you could be absolutely drop dead gorgeous, but if you're just, in the words of Rodney Carrington, like just a fucking bitch.
That's why I have a 1 to 20 scale. Because I know women
Yeah,
that
but,
are like drop dead gorgeous.
But she, having gone through what she had to go through, I mean, every one of her teeth are fake.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all implants. She has finally grown her hair out, obviously.
Yeah.
She's actually eligible for parole in 2024, so there's hope for you yet. But Gojon was found guilty of first-degree murder in 2018. He was sentenced to life in prison, so he's not getting out.
Yeah, he's not even allowed for parole.
Yeah, so and it was okay, so I watched the detective interview footage for both of them. There was a male detective that had interviewed Gypsy, and there was a female detective that interviewed Nick. And because the police, like you and I discussed before we came in to film today, that the police are authorized to lie to you during an interview, right?
Yeah. They just can't go overboard.
Yeah, they can't be so blatant about it. I mean, they can just kind of like guide you, sort of. Anyways.
Yeah.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole. But anyway, so, she would lie to her detective, probably for the majority of her interview. The crying, the tears, just I love my mom. I don't know why he did what he did. And the detective's like, yeah, you know why this happened. You know what happened. Let's not go down this road. I've got people outside asking me why, detective, why did this happen? And I can't give them any answers unless you tell me the truth.
Yeah, I had one detective tell me that one of the best kills that he did is he would say, well, we don't have anything on you, but out of curiosity, how would you do it? And he would just check off all the stuff that was right with the case.
Yeah, see, unlike when we were talking about Henry Lee Lucas, when they were giving him the case files.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the job of the detective to get those answers without revealing them.
Yeah.
Because there are certain things about the cases that only the perp would know.
But he wouldn't give the evidence and everything until like afterwards they could and it was only after where they had like the fingerprints and the DNA and everything like that.
Yeah.
He literally said that it's like we couldn't get a confession, but we could look at the stuff that he would actually touch and actually do and everything, and they would build a case from that.
Yeah.
Which is actually really intelligent.
Yeah, now I tried to find the entirety of the Dr. Phil interview that he did with Gypsy Rose. And I mean, I can only find like 2, 3, 4 minute snippets.
Yeah, because you'd have to find the whole episode.
Yeah, and let's just Dr. Phil is Dr. Phil. I know he's not a real doctor. Don't come at me. But I can't sit through an entire episode of Dr. Phil. I was just looking for the information.
Yeah, he's a nice gay, but he's...
Did you say he's a nice gay?
No, guy. Yeah, guy.
He's a nice guy.
I don't know why I went to a different.
You were trying to
freaking-
be all Minnesotan, eh? Yes,
I don't know why either.
I don't know either.
It's just
but,
like
you know.
I had a little switch there that just went like, we're gonna talk Minnesota right now. I was like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Now I sound like a moron. my brain is not wired right, people. It really isn't.
Oh, but he asked her if she was glad that her mother was dead, and she was like, "I'm glad I'm out of that situation, but I'm not happy she's dead." So I mean, I think that to a degree, yes, she's guilty. Do not misconstrue that at all. She facilitated it, she solicited it, and she enabled the murder of her mother.
Yeah.
Now,
Was
it because she was under duress? Because she was suffering from that tortured victim syndrome? Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, did Dee Dee deserve to die? Absolutely not. I think that it could have been handled a lot better. Some of Gypsy's friends, they at first they were like, I didn't know that she could walk, but then after they retrospect, they were like, the signs were there. I don't know why I didn't see it before.
Yeah,
She could have gotten out of that situation, and I think that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Dee Dee had actually posed it to Gypsy to say that if I get caught, you're going down with me because you're of age now and you consented to all of this the entire time.
Yeah.
And so Gypsy was afraid that she was going to go to prison for fraud. And I'm like, okay, I get where that's, coming from, because I mean, here's this mother who is supposed to be taking care of her child, and she is just basically running the system. I mean, she is playing that game, and she is playing it well. And at points, she thought that it's going to get out of hand, and so what she would do to punish Gypsy is tie her to a bed with like dog leashes or blindfolds, whatever.
Yeah.
And just leave her there.
Yeah, that's.
And then just like trash whatever it was that Gypsy had purchased or had found or acquired, because she was, again, that overbearing, over-the-top helicopter mom that just couldn't let go.
Yeah, her mom was like fug ugly.
And I think too a part of it was the fact that Dee Dee, I didn't find a lot of information on Dee Dee's mom out there online, but the way that the mother was portrayed in the show, mom was just as bad.
Yeah.
It was, well, I'm a better mom than you could ever hope to be. And, like when Dee Dee went to jail for check fraud, she had, basically undid everything that Dee Dee thought to do as a mom. And then when Dee Dee got out of jail, basically just like, all right, Mama, I'm going to move in here and take care of you. And then basically just kind of let her mom die. Without any remorse.
I was looking at that too. I thought Dee Dee actually killed her mom.
Well, I don't think it was so much the fact that she outright killed her. I think, well, she did, but she didn't do it directly, like suffocation with a pillow or anything like that. She just basically neglected to provide her mom the care necessary,
like food and whatnot.
Yes, I mean she basically just kind of like starved her mom out, or what have you. But and I'm not a big believer in karma, because I think karma is kind of a Buddhist principle, blah blah blah. Anyway, so having said that, okay. That's a subject matter for another episode.
Yeah.
Okay, now, because of some of the feedback we received over the weekend during the barbecue competition, yes, we get wildly off track. So I'm trying to be very good here. So I'm propping my halo up with my devil horns, and we're trying to, film a good episode that, we're gonna try to keep it on track as much as possible. But, so I think that the way that Dee Dee went out, the way that she was killed,
it's a punishment fitting, though.
It was a punishment befitting of the crime, as it relates to tit for tat, eye for an eye.
Yeah.
You know,
But you also have to look at the one thing on here. I mean, Gypsy was homeschooled. The only way she learned how to read was on her own accord when she was reading the Harry Potter books. And you also got to look at the father basically being denied his child.
yeah. And see the way that he was portrayed in the show, it was like he was non-existent.
Yeah. And he tried so hard to
Yeah.
be part of his daughter's life.
Yeah, and see when I saw that and I read that, I mean, I instantly
You get that gut churning.
I instantly identified with the dad because it's like, you know, as a single dad who, you know, has now been twice divorced, it's like I get what it's like to not have access to your kids when you want them.
Yeah.
And before we go down that road and, you know, I start getting summons and you know, legal paperwork in the mail, I'm not saying that I was denied my kids or are being denied my kids, because I get to see my two boys on a pretty regular basis.
More than most people.
Yeah, more than most dads, you know. So, and in fact, I had them for breakfast, you know, for this morning. I took my kids out to breakfast this morning
It was
because
one of their birthdays, right?
yeah, it's my youngest son's birthday today, so he turned a whole whopping 10 years old. So,
Ooh.
um,
Couple more years, you're gonna have a handful.
hey, you know, I've got a handful now. So I've got a 12-year-old. So that he's just like, dude, literally, he is a miniature version of me.
That's not good.
It scares the crap out of me. But Reagan, my 10-year-old now, my now 10-year-old, he is scary smart. He's my kid with Asperger's. So, you know, and I'm like, wow, I want to spend 5 minutes inside of his head now that we've gotten off track again. But
That's not really off track. We're getting into the development
Yeah, so-
of how the father was actually
yeah, so it's like
Treated to the
he
point.
constantly would call Dee Dee. He's like, well, is she going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life? Is she actually sick? Can she walk now? And she would give him these answers like, well, she's got muscular dystrophy. She's going to be, you know, her body's going to eat away at itself, and she's going to be bound to a wheelchair soon, you know. And it's like, and you're smiling and laughing about something. What's going on?
I'll talk to you later about it.
Okay. But there was a guy, Dr. Mark Feldman. He's an expert in Munchausen syndrome by proxy. He said about Gypsy's life and actions, quote, "The control was total in the same sense that the control of a kidnapped victim sometimes is total. Her daughter was, in essence, a hostage." And I think
and
we can understand the crime that occurred subsequently in the terms of a hostage trying to gain escape. That's why I think that she didn't go down for the actual murder. I think I don't even.
It was
her actual
like
charge?
fourth degree. No, there's no fourth degree murder. Or
Let
murder
me
by association or
see
something like that.
here.
Trial. Okay, there we go.
Anyway, so she got a lesser charge.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was because of the emotional trauma, the psychological trauma that she endured her entire life. Do I think that... Now, I have been working really hard to try to be what people would be considered a better human being. But, you know, kind of like Amy Fisher, remember the Long Island Lolita? You know, she shot Joey Buttafuoco. Sorry.
God, you went down and you kept on going down. You're like, man,
I'm trying to get the bilge pump to work so that way I can save the ship. But she shot her lover's wife's wife in the head.
Yeah.
Totally like botched that up. You know, it's like it's a headshot.
He
How do
got
you
away
strip a
with.
headshot?
He got away. He technically.
He basically got away with it, but she went to
murder.
prison. Now she's out of prison. You know what she does now? She's an adult entertainer. Now, do I think Gypsy Rose is going to become an adult entertainer? I hope not. Just because it's not that she.
Not gonna lie, now I'm gonna look that up. Not right now.
Not right now. Not right now. But do I think that that's going to be... those people are going to be out there to offer her that as an option for income when she gets out. Now, I think that is she going to have a hard time trying to readjust and maybe kind of fade off into obscurity?
I would totally do that. There's a lot of people that have that kind of problem and everything like that, and that's
Yeah,
what they do.
she's
They
going to try like hell to do it, but I
It's like children's of serial killers. That's what they do.
yeah, I mean she's going to try to do her best to fade off into obscurity. Now, because that we live in the age that we do, the internet, the 24-hour news cycle, that kind of a thing.
Hmm.
Once she's eligible for parole in 3 years, when and I believe that she may end up getting it.
Yeah.
She's going to have a hard time at first disappearing. She really is. Um, do I think that she may be the subject of a degree of paparazzi stalking? Absolutely, she will be. And the show didn't help, honestly. Now, the show, that's a two-edged sword because yeah, it brought awareness of the case to the forefront. But like Hollywood does with most everything, they take a lot of that that artistic license, and they change some of the facts about it.
And they dramatize it.
They dramatize the shit out of it.
We've already talked like hands over like a lot of the Man in the Arena,
Yeah.
the story of Eddie Gallagher.
Hmm.
I don't know if they're into getting it as a film or anything, but it would.
It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me, and it wouldn't be, and honestly, I see people like, I don't know, I don't want to say Jason Statham because he's got way more hair than Jason Statham does, but you probably would see somebody like Henry Cavill playing him in a movie.
He's already said he wanted to get Jason Statham.
He did?
Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me either.
But
But, the show, it really didn't do her a whole lot of favor. I mean, it did in the sense that it's garnering public sympathy for her particular side of the case. But you're going to have those people that look at everything from an analytical standpoint, and they're going to be like, look, she's just as guilty as the guy that plunged the knife into her mom's body.
yeah, and a lot of people will say that. You'll always have like a line, and certain people will be on, oh, she should get the death penalty, blah blah blah, and you look at the other side of the line, and people it's like, oh, she was a victim and everything, and I'm on the she was a victim, and she
is a
should have gotten
victim.
away with it
Yeah.
because
She is a victim, and to a degree, she is getting away with it because, for all intents and purposes, anytime if it were anybody else, I mean, you see these Datelines or you see these episodes on like the Murder Mystery Channel that Discovery has ID.
murder, it's
Yeah,
murder.
whatever. They solicit it. They solicit a hit for murder for hire.
Yeah,
That's basically what she did with this guy.
yeah,
Now, what I picked up on was during his interview with the detective.
mm-hmm.
I mean, you could completely and totally tell that this dude
Wasn't right in the head.
wasn't right in the head, but he absolutely loves Gypsy Rose
Yeah,
because he was like, she went into the bathroom and locked the door because she couldn't do it. He didn't want her to see the body because he didn't want her to be traumatized.
yeah. She ended up closing her ears. She didn't want
Yeah.
any kind of sound or anything of it actually
And-
happening.
But here's the thing. Here's why I'm glad that she at least caught some time for this, because both their stories involve sex after the act. Now, she claimed originally that he raped her, but according to his side of the narrative, it was 100% consensual. In fact, he actually used the term 100% consensual. Verbatim, 100% consensual. That was in the transcript. If you go and if you can find the video on YouTube, but I mean they knocked all the stuffed animals and toys and shit off the bed, and they had sex, and he was like, yeah, we did it all, oral, anal, vaginal, and so I mean, and the detective, you could obviously tell that at some points during that conversation she was feeling a little bit overwhelmed and somewhat uncomfortable, but I mean, she was in there doing her job. So, I mean, she was in there, explain to me what it was. I mean, did she allow you to do anal? And he's like, oh, yeah, but you could tell that he wasn't, he
He
was
wasn't
physically
lying.
there. He wasn't lying. I mean, when she explained to him, it's like, look, we've already talked to her and she's told us everything. We wouldn't have spent so much time talking to her if we didn't get everything before we came to talk to you. And he spent a lot of time in the interview room by himself crying because he said he was worried about her.
Yeah.
And so I think to a degree, yes, she's guilty, absolutely. Should she have gotten away with it? No, and here's why: because I think to a degree she took advantage of the fact that he wasn't wired completely right upstairs. She took advantage of that, and she saw an opportunity. Now, granted, to the flip side of that argument, before you just put on your devil's advocate hat, I already know where you're going to go with this. Yeah, she was desperate to find a way out of her situation, and she saw this as her only viable means. True, yes, I'm not going to argue that point with you. However, she knew full well that by doing this, there was a very high probability that they were going to get caught, and she was going to use him
As a scapegoat. Okay,
exactly. He became the built-in patsy. He was her Lee Harvey Oswald.
yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's where my point of view comes from. That's where my method of thinking. That's where my logic is going.
I could see that.
So, but I mean, do I think that overall the case is just jacked up? Absolutely. I mean,
Well,
I mean,
even the whole situation is jacked up.
yeah.
Because you got the father that wasn't allowed to see his kid. You got a mother that she found a way to make money without having to work or anything, but she had to sacrifice her child.
Yeah.
That eventually got to the point where her child ended up murdering her and creating. It was just so much stuff. It just the lies compounded with totally destroying this child.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to get everybody on this is it was literally a mother that wanted money, found a way to do it,
And then
and just
couldn't make herself stop.
couldn't make herself stop. And also the fact of creating a web of lies to the point where she literally had her daughter have surgery.
Mm-hmm. And I think to a degree, Dee Dee had spun so many lies. She had lived this deceptive facade for so long that I think Dee Dee actually, right up to the end, believed it. Right up to the point where she felt the knife being plunged into her chest. But, it I think that Dee Dee needed to go away. If there's any takeaways from this, I think it brings to light a lot more of that deceptive practice by some of these what's a term that we could use is a charity parents.
Yeah.
They take advantage of these nonprofits. They take advantage of these charity groups. But instead of using themselves, they use their kids. And to me, that is the utmost.
Disgusting.
It's deplorable. It really is. It makes me physically ill to think that a parent could do that to their kid. I mean, that would be like, I mean, to me, I think with the case with Dee Dee is the fact that she refused to accept responsibility for her actions, and it was always some kind of like, it was almost borderline narcissistic. It's kind of like it's everybody else's fault. Woe is me. It's almost like how can I put this? It's almost like it's almost like a single parent bringing a toxic individual into the house
and telling the child that she has to do whatever he says, and it ends up being like child rapist.
So this toxic individual comes into the house and completely rewrites the dynamic in the home.
That's another thing that freaking upsets me is stuff like that, to where, say, I bring someone in my relationship, I find somebody, and I bring my daughter along and everything, and if you do anything against my child, you're going to be looking at the curb.
Yeah, and
I don't care who you are. I stopped talking to friends because they were talking trash about my daughter.
I could sit here all day and tell you that I would instinctually take the high road, and I would take, the more, for lack of a better term, the more evolved road, and take those legal steps to remove this particular individual from my kids' lives. But dude, your instinct as a parent would be to get violent with that individual. It really would.
Yeah.
I mean, like, okay, so, it's like, if anybody was introduced into my kids' lives and my kids were in danger because of this individual, whether because they didn't like them, whether because they looked at them in a sexual way, or they placed...
They put them in a situation to where they were in danger.
Yeah, I mean, they were put in danger either through association, through the other parent, or whatever, And I'm not speaking specifics. I'm just speaking in generalities here. But to me, yeah. I mean, I've got my life, that I'm rebuilding after divorce, and rebuilding after all of the issues that stemmed from it, but. First and foremost, I mean,
you're a parent.
It's my kids.
Yeah.
They're my responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think, and this is why I really identified with the dad, because dads they go into family court with both hands tied behind their back.
There's even a TED Talk about that from a lawyer that had to be part of the. I would just say the mother. She was a mother lawyer.
Yeah.
And it got back to the thing. She stopped it. She didn't want to be any part of any woman that wanted to be hire her as a lawyer. She's like, no, I can't do it. I only do fathers now.
Yeah, and you're starting to see a lot of more of the fathers' rights movement become more mainstream, become more accepted. But in states like Texas, where we have that Division 4,
yeah,
I mean, Division 4 is the biggest money laundering racket I think that's ever been perpetrated. I read somewhere, I think it was 2018 or 2019, that Division 4 in the state of Texas alone generated $93 million worth of revenue for the state.
God.
And, and I belong to a lot of fathers' rights pages on Facebook and things like that. And I think that this situation, had her dad been allowed to be a more active part of her life, Dee Dee would, one, still be alive. Two, Gypsy would not be in prison.
Mm-hmm.
Gypsy would be a productive, normal, contributing member of society. She would have her fairy tale life, in all likelihood.
Yeah.
But because one parent excluded the other party, put her daughter in danger and you can't say, I mean, for all of the things that Dee Dee did.
What I was going to say is even the stepmother was trying to help.
Yeah, she was, but Dee Dee shut it down.
Yeah, when we say shut it down, she would move and not tell the other parent, but she would collect the child support. That's the only way he found her.
Yeah. And see, that's another thing too, and that's a topic for another episode. We can move on from this little snippet that I'm about to throw up here, but not throw out, but throw up, because child support is just disgusting. But child support should be for the deadbeat dads, or not necessarily deadbeat dads, because even that's part of the problem, because there are deadbeat mothers out there too.
Yeah.
But I think that if the non-custodial parent is an active, present part of that kid's life, I think it should be 50-50.
Yeah.
I think 50-50 should be the standard, and the child support's going to be for that non-present individual.
I honestly think that
Because I mean,
all the money should be put in a trust fund,
well,
and eventually,
when you're talking about 50-50, as far as like the truest definition of what 50-50 should be, that's split expenses right down the middle. We're
Yeah.
talking about tuition if they go to private school. We're talking about clothing. We're talking about medical.
okay,
You know,
I got you. I got
and,
you, I
and
got
those
you.
expenses, and it's like, okay, those expenses, they can be tracked. That's fine. But as far as like collecting, like, okay, say for example, if like say you get, let's say your child support's like $478 a month or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, the custodial parent will only receive like maybe 400 of it.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, because Division 4 is going to take their cut, and then they disseminate their cuts further down the line. I've seen where I've seen some articles out there about Division 4 where it talks about like the judges and even the lawyers that get involved in family court, they all receive some kind of a kickback because of Division 4. Like the more people that they can put into the child support system, the more access that particular judge or that particular lawyer gets to X amount of funds.
Yeah.
But all that aside, see, this is where we jumped wildly off track.
Yeah.
But-
And we're getting back. Actually, we're pretty much done after
Yeah.
that.
But the
But
fact that
this
yeah.
case was so sad.
It
and
was.
It,
It's
it
sad.
could have been so prevented if someone took a little bit due diligence. And a lot of the doctors, not to say they tried their best.
They did. They really tried. Especially there was a female.
Because
there was a female doctor.
Okay, yeah, and not getting anything about doctors or anything like that, but the reason why the doctors couldn't do anything is because as soon as the doctors took a little bit more in depth, because they did do their due diligence,
Yeah.
and they were like, this doesn't sound right, and they were trying to stop it, and as soon as they did that, Dee Dee would move.
Yeah, like CPS would come over to the house. They would interview both her. They would interview Gypsy, and then they would inspect the home. And these okay, I have heartburn with CPS. I really do.
Okay.
If you are a social worker that is doing your actual job, you're not out there just ripping kids out of their homes because of this, that, and the other. But at the same time, you're going to have those social workers that will leave a kid there because they don't want to be the bad person. Now, I think that the CPS workers or the social workers that would be sent to Dee Dee and Gypsy's homes, whatever, they didn't want to be pegged as that social worker that removed this poor, sick child from her home.
Yeah.
And I think it's such crap. I mean, the system was so broken, and to a lot of degree, it still is nationwide, that these parents are able to do that. They're able to look at, well, like say, for example, we might have another Dee Dee and Gypsy Rose kind of a situation out there brewing in any one of our 50 states.
Yeah.
But they look and see, okay, well, this is where Dee Dee went wrong. I'm not going to do that, and they're going to continue to refine the game until they find every loophole in the system. I think the system honestly needs to be revamped to prevent things like this from happening. And a lot of that is going to start with parental intervention, giving people like the non-custodial dads or even the non-custodial moms.
In some cases, though, some cases are just hand pot. You look at it, it's wrong.
Yeah.
Or it's right.
Yeah.
But you have a lot of people take everything as face value.
They do, and I'm guilty of that too. I'll extend trust to anybody the first time.
Yeah, but once you start breaking and everything,
yeah,
like that,
when you burn that bridge, good luck. And
better be getting some steel instead of wood.
I'm just saying, you better come at me with some tungsten.
Yeah.
Or even Bhaskar. If we're going to throw some nerd references in there, but and it's like, this case didn't need to happen the way that it did.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we for all intents and purposes, we should be talking about Jack the Ripper or something,
Yeah.
something more historical. But this, it's I think it's relevant, and it needed to be discussed because it didn't occur.
It had a lot of factors would it could have
I mean, the
been
case isn't
prevented.
even it's not even 10 years old.
Oh no. It's what 2018?
Yeah, 2018, yeah, something like that. 2017, I think it was 15.
15.
Yeah, June of 2015, Dee Dee was murdered.
Okay, yeah.
So I mean, it's 6 years old.
Yeah.
It's 6 years old this month.
Yeah.
So and it's like we have. I mean, the information is still fresh. I mean, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
We're going to continue to find out things about this case. I mean, this is something that I'm going to follow even after we cut for the day.
Yeah.
Because this case just intrigued the crap out of me. It really did.
Yeah, because it's just it's
And
one of those
And it's not even the train wreck factor. I mean, I mean, you want to look
it's
away.
the recipe of what not to do.
Yeah, and it's it is the closest thing to a Shakespearean tragedy that we're going to have in the 21st century to
Yeah.
date. Next to political theater. And this is real life. These are people that suffered. The Gypsy suffered, even to an extent. Nick suffered. Dee Dee definitely caught the short end of the stick on this one.
And the father suffered.
The
I mean,
father suffered.
even the extent
entire
of,
family suffers.
Yeah.
The stepmom, she's suffering. She's like, my stepdaughter's in prison. So it's like you pray and you hope that the day that Dee Dee or that Gypsy gets released from prison, on
She
parole,
gets help.
That she gets help. And I think that the fastest and the most surefire way that that's going to happen is if her dad is sitting there waiting out in the parking lot to take Gypsy home. And we pray.
or
that-
even help in prison.
Yeah, even that. But I'm talking about once she gets out, once she's on the outside, she's not in the institution, she's out in society.
And what's really sad is she even stated that she feels more free and able to be a woman that she was supposed to be in prison than she did in her own mother's
Right,
care.
it's because of the absence of her mother's control. So
Yeah.
and we hope that the dad wasn't being disingenuous, that he actually genuinely cares about the health and welfare of his daughter, which, if he's half the dad that he's claiming to be, should be the case, and it shouldn't be a big deal for him, and it shouldn't be that big of a stretch.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be the adjustment, and there's going to be the reintroduction or the familiarization process that's involved, because he's been excluded from her life up to this point. And I would really hope that they've been like communicating, and that he's present at least as much as he can while she's in prison. Because surfs, not to again to come across as being superficial, but she's a relatively beautiful young lady who has her entire life out in front of her still, and she has the ability to be able to put this behind her
And be a better person.
and to be a better person. And she claimed on multiple occasions during the course of that Dr. Phil interview, from snippets that I saw, that's what she's trying to do. That's what she's trying to become. She's trying to become that better person. And I hope and pray that that is the case, that when she's out of prison, she can get past her parole period, and then she can just completely move on. She can put this behind her and close the book. Not close the book, put it on the shelf and forget that she had it, and then sell it in a yard sale somewhere, let down the road. But she can draw from that, and she'll know, hey, look, I can't go back here. This is something that I can't allow to happen. And if
well,
she,
it's that
yeah.
whole philosophy of instead of being chained by your past, you're actually learning from it, and you still use it as a reference to better yourself in life.
Right. Yes, I mean it's like I said, I'm glad that we addressed this case, because
Yeah.
because unlike any of our other cases, this one has the potential to turn out better. with everything else that we've highlighted so far in this particular series, everything has had a real like a finality to it. We're not talking about the killer or somebody who facilitated the murders. I mean, they're either still in prison with no chance of parole, or they've died because of the natural causes or execution.
Yeah.
And you still got these victims' families out there. Whereas this was a true family crime that unfortunately got way out of hand because of one individual. And
Fighting to keep the lie constant.
Yeah, fighting to keep the lie alive, putting her daughter in an untenable position, and unfortunately, Gypsy just made a bad judgment call. I don't fault her for trying to get out. What I do find fault in is the manner upon which she did it.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so she's answering for her crime. She's paying her debt to society. When she gets out, she's going to have a lot of damage control, and she's going to have to expect that when she gets out of prison, it's going to be a long road to toe. But it's not an insurmountable obstacle in her life.
Yeah, exactly.
What may appear to be a mountain now could very well be a molehill once she gets out, depending on the support system that she has in place when she gets out of prison.
And that was another thing that we were talking about. As soon as she does get out of prison, is she going to be one of those people that just shuns the limelight?
Yeah, I hope that she doesn't embrace the limelight and say, well, this is what I did. The last thing that we need is another Catch Me Outside girl. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We don't need that. I don't think that that's the case with her. She did admit that her mother trained her to be a very good liar. I hope that she embraces the truth. I hope that she embraces who she was, but she also embraces the ability and the fact that she can become anybody that she wants at this point.
Yeah.
But again, that's going to fall back on her support system. As long as she does everything within her power to try to keep her orientation vertical, and she looks ahead, I think she'll be okay. But if she falls into that trap of celebrity, notoriety, people wanting to kind of get that perverse kick by, associating themselves with somebody like this,
Mm-hmm.
I think that she needs to stay away from that crowd.
Yeah.
So as long as she does everything within her power to avoid that, and when she falls short, she has her support system to pick up that slack, I think she'll be okay.
Yep. And that's it. Our next episode, we actually got a comment from this one, and I told her to freaking do it in the comments and not just tell me, so because I would forget. Luca Magnota, Maggnota.
Was it on one of our YouTube comments?
Yeah, it was Henry Lee Lucas one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see here. Subscriptions here. And then
I might actually get her to actually do the show. I'm going to talk to her about it.
Luca Magnotta.
Yeah, I'm going to see if she says she just doesn't want to talk that stuff and everything, but I'm going to see if I can get her on. I'm just going to ask her.
Well, before we, before we try to get Marissa on the show, let's us do our homework on it.
Yeah.
Because if she's not comfortable, it's obvious that she's comfortable being in front of a camera, but, and I didn't mean that in a derogatory way at all. So yeah. Anyways, I get that people don't like to talk about this dark stuff, and
Well, it's not even that. Some people just don't like to be on camera and talk.
True. Yeah.
Because my brother-in-law is like that. I asked him, I was like, hey, you want to come and do this? He's like, nah. He's a teacher up at Vernon.
Yeah. And it's like with Mike this past weekend. He was like, dude, I had so much fun sitting there commentating on people sitting at the judging table. Even though he wasn't on camera, like, I was listening out of the corner of my ear, so it was like, I thought he did rather well.
He did.
Behind the mic.
He really did.
And so I as soon as his schedule allows, I would love to have him come in.
Yeah.
And we can find a subject matter that he's comfortable with, but I think he would be a rock star at it.
I was actually, because before we even talked, what we were talking about before we actually did the commentary of the. I would really like to have him on, just me and him, talking about the difference between people's tragedies.
Yeah.
Because that we had a very good conversation about it,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, he like bug-eyed when I told him all my troubles and everything like that, and how I deal with it, and how I understand of other people's problems, and how sadly enough I become like numb to a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I'm David Dickerman,
I'm Johnny Skelton.
and catch you next time.
Absolutely.